Yeah. Alright guys, so I wanted us to at least just get into the mood of Pesach a little bit. Every year we usually do this. We have Pesach preparation classes. What I did was back in 2018 I recorded them with a slideshow, and that's what you have in front of you. But I thought, let's just do it again because it's nicer when you can ask questions and discuss stuff. And because this year Pesach falls on a Saturday night, which makes life almost unbearable. So I thought maybe let's just discuss it and go through it for the next few weeks. So tonight we'll just discuss the biblical introduction to Pesach. Next week we'll look at chometz, what constitutes as chometz, and how to clean your house and prepare for Pesach. So good luck with that next week. And then the third week we'll study the Seder, so that you guys know why we do what at Seder night. So you don't sit here all night asking, what's this do? What's the meaning of this one? I don't want to eat the salty water. What ridiculous meal is this? So we'll study the...
That's the right time to ask questions.
That's right. You're right. It's the right time to ask questions. Now, our sages knew that there were going to be Jews at this meal, so they said there's only 4 questions. Do you know why Jews always ask so many questions? Why not? Right. So I want to look at it because when it comes to Pesach actually hits you quite fast and hard if you're not ready for it. You know, it's a 7-day festival, but before you know it, it's gone and it's behind you, and you still haven't cleaned out half of your house. So there's so many stuff you have to look at when you look at Pesach, right? It's the cleaning of the house, which is a big thing, which many of us dread, I think, right? It's much easier to just burn down your house every year and get insurance. We have to study the Exodus. We have to study all the plagues and the meaning of all the plagues, the Pesach offering itself, that lamb, the kashrut for what you're allowed to eat, what you're not allowed to eat. That's always a difficult thing to figure out during those 7 days. The splitting of the sea that happens on the 7th day, the 2 Yom Tovs we keep, and then we also have to go and study the New Testament as well. Yeshua decided let's use this festival to go and do all the fulfillment of the stuff, and we have the crucifixion and the resurrection during that time as well. Then we have to start counting the Omer, just when you thought, hey, I've got this Pesach thing covered. Here comes the Omer to make life even more difficult, and then understanding all of those Seder traditions. So there's a lot of stuff going on. So this is why our sages tell us in something called the Shulchan Aruch. So the Shulchan Aruch is a writing that our sages put together for Ashkenazi Jews that tells us the name Shulchan Aruch means a set table. So this is how you practice your faith. If you want to know the minutiae for you that are OCD, I know the Bible says that, but what if this and this and this happens? The Shulchan Aruch answers all those questions. So the Shulchan Aruch tells us, in order to prepare properly for Pesach, you have to start studying the laws of Pesach 30 days before Pesach. When is 30 days before Pesach? We're late. What's this? Laat Lamikis. Purim is exactly a month before it. So just after Purim, the first thing you're supposed to do is start studying the festival of Pesach. It's interesting with all the festivals, as soon as the festival ends, you actually have to start with the next one. For example, this week's parasha, I just realized this now. Moses came down from the mountain on which day? With the second set of tablets, when we were forgiven? Yom Kippur. And then he said, Vayakal, let's build the tabernacle. Why do we do the first thing right after Yom Kippur every year? You have to start building your sukkah. This is based on this thing of this week's parasha. So after Purim, we have to start studying for Pesach. Now, Purim has to be connected with Pesach, always. For example, when we have a leap year, right, we double the month of Adar. That's the month we decide to double. So when we double Adar, when do we... It's funny, Purim is lots in gambling, so double Adar. When we double Adar, which month of Adar do we keep Purim in? The first month or the second month? The second one. Why? Because it must be connected to Pesach. It must be 30 days away from Pesach. Because the idea of the redemption already is over there, and the fulfillment of it is on Pesach. So we've got to keep up this idea of the redemption. So that's why we're going to start studying this. We're a little bit behind, but don't worry, we'll get there eventually. Achter ons kom ook in die kraal, they say, hey? Right, so... There we go. What? There was a family of tomatoes crossing the street. Yes. And then the baby at the back got squashed by a car. What did the dad say? Catch up. Okay, so ketchup is what you call squashed tomato. Okay, never mind. We're not going to go that in depth. Okay, so today we're going to look at just the biblical overview of the festival. All right, so you guys have got these handouts in front of you with the quotes and stuff. Sorry about the quality of the printing, but yeah, we had to use American Indians with smoke signals to blow it into the pages. Right, so Pesach preparation. Okay, now Pesach is a big deal in the Bible, right? The Torah devotes more commandments to the festival of Pesach than any other commandment or festival. We have 24 specific mitzvahs only for Pesach, for the 7 days a year. So it's a big 7 days. It's like your final exam kind of thing almost. Right? So the Shulchan Aruch tells us we must start studying it 30 days before the festival. So let's look at the scriptures. We've got two of the main ones that we can look at. We can look at Leviticus 23. Of course, we all know that is God's calendar, right? But then we're also going to look at Exodus 12, which talks about the original Pesach when we came out of Egypt. So let's start with Leviticus 23, verse 5. In the first month, so we know now that the Hebrew calendar has got different months and different years, right? The year begins on Tishri, but the months begin on Nisan. But then we've got 4 New Years in Hebrew and in Jewish tradition, right? Why? Because we keep failing our New Year's resolutions. Why not? There we go. Why not? It depends. Okay, so we got 4 New Years. The first month, the beginning of the months is Nisan, right? On the 14th day of the month. Now it gives us a specific time as well. Between sundown and complete darkness. When is that? It depends on your rabbi. So when does the sun start going down? After midday. So from 12 o'clock about, right? So between midday, sundown, and complete darkness comes Pesach for Adonai. What does Pesach mean? Passing over. Anything else? The offering. When the Torah talks about the word Pesach, it specifically references the actual lamb offering. Today we talk about Pesach as the festival, as that 7-day long festival. The Torah doesn't talk about it that way. We, over thousands of years of talking about and doing this every single year, we ended up just calling the whole festival Pesach. So what happens a lot is when we read the Bible, we read that anachronistically back into the Bible. When the Bible says Pesach, it's not talking about the week. It's talking about the actual offering. Okay, that lamb, that Pesach lamb is the Pesach because God Pasacht, He passed over us.
Because it's the 14th of Nisan, it just occurred to me that normally when at around 14, 15, it's actually the full moon.
Yeah, full moon.
So is it possible that it was meant to also just align with the full moon?
Definitely. Remember, we had to come out of Egypt in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And we didn't have torches. And we didn't have torches, so we needed the full moon to travel.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, also it's the idea that God represents Himself in its fullness during the full moon.
Yeah.
So it's also linked with the festivals themselves are like this mirror image, because Sukkot is like the mirror image of Pesach. It's also 7 days long. So they're both supposed to be these new moon festivals. Yeah. Full moon festivals. New moon is Rosh Hashanah, and what else is on the new moon? Shavuot's just after. Shavuot's a weird date. Shavuot's usually the 6th of Sivan. But yeah, so this one's meant to be on the new moon specifically for God revealing His fullness of His redemption. Remember we spoke about, a few weeks back I gave a sermon here about the fact that we've got this midrash, this famous midrash that talks about the cycles of the moon. When we're studying Exodus 12, the cycles of the moon represent like the periods of redemption, right? From David to Messiah, all these things. It was like this waxing and waning of the moon till when King Solomon came, it was full moon. It's the same idea. So it teaches us to expect the Messiah to come and do His work of redemption on the full moon of Pesach. So yeah. But please don't go and meditate on the moon now. Those are called lunatics. So please, you'll be struck by the moon and become not a vampire, what's it? A werewolf. A werewolf. A werewolf's real. Werewolf with castle.
No, I actually only recently found out that they call them lunatics because of...
Yeah, because they go crazy when the moon is full. The gravity of the moon pulls the liquids in your brain and then people go a little bit crazy. It's like the tides of the sea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So werewolves, I gave a sermon about it last year, December. Yeah. We found it in the Torah. Anyways, nowadays we've got a bunch of hippies that are all worried about being aware. So we call them the aware wolves now. So, so they've changed shape. You see, they're shapeshifters. Now they're hippies.
You know how to make a cat woof?
How do you make, tell us how to make a cat woof?
Set it alight.
Set it on fire and goes woof. Alright, so it tells us here the 14th of the first month, right? The 14th of Nisan, that afternoon, towards the end of that day, right? From sundown till complete darkness, around there, comes Pesach, the lamb, for Adonai. On the 15th day of the same month, so that's actually that night, hey? Right? We understand how the Hebrew calendar works? Day begins in the darkness. It was evening and it was morning the first day. It wasn't morning and evening, it was evening and morning the first day.
That makes sense, because the sun goes down and then the day's over. The new day starts.
Yeah. So I love the idea that we start by sleeping. It's fantastic. My favorite verse in the Bible is that Jesus took a nap. on the boat.
Catch a wake up.
Catch a wake-up call, yeah. All right, so on the 15th day, but it's also a lesson for us where darkness comes before the light. So, when things look dark, don't worry, the light is coming. So on the 15th day of that same month is the festival of Matzah. So that's one of the names the Torah uses for this festival. Chag HaMatzah, or Chag HaMatzi, the festival of Matzah, for all 7 days. Cardboard, yes, exactly. For expired cardboard. For 7 days, you are to eat matzah. On the first day, you are to have a holy convocation. So you guys must come and convoke here. Okay, come and join us together. We get together and we have to say stuff to make it holy. We have to do a declaration. So what do? We do Kiddush. That's why we do the blessing on the wine. We sanctify the day. So we have to do a holy convocation, get together and say something. Don't do any kind of ordinary work. That's this week's parashah explains for us what is the ordinary work, right? There's certain work you are allowed to do on Shabbat, but speaking specifically about malacha. Malacha is creative work, right? So the malacha that was used to build the tabernacle, those are the things you're not allowed to do on Shabbat, and it applies as well to the Yom Tov, to the first day of this festival, even if it falls on a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday. Bring an offering made by fire to Adonai for 7 days. Wasn't there already an offering? Weren't you supposed to bring the Pesach lamb? How many days will you bring the Pesach lamb? One. So what is this talking about? This is something else. This is called the Korban Chagiga. The Korban Chagiga is the festival offering. You have to bring a festival offering in addition to the lamb. So you bring a bull and the Pesach lamb on Pesach. And then in the temple, it's brought for all 7 days. So that's why when we get to studying the Pesach Seder a few weeks from now, I'll explain to you on the Pesach plate, we've got a boiled egg and we've got a little lamb shank or a chicken bone or a chicken neck or something. So the lamb shank or the chicken neck, that represents the Pesach lamb offering. But the boiled egg, what does that represent? Easter eggs.
That's where it comes from.
No. So that boiled egg represents the Korban Chagiga, this festival offering you would bring as well. So, we wanted to put something meaty on the plate as well to represent the other offering, but we've already got the bone of meat, so what's sort of meat but not really meat? An egg. It becomes meat, right? What came first, the chicken or the egg? So that's what it represents. The Korban Chagiga represents that thing specifically. Okay. Bring an offering made by fire to Adonai for 7 days. On the 7th day is another holy convocation. So the 7th day of Pesach is another Yom Tov. Do not do any kind of ordinary work on that day neither. Right, so let's look at it. That's Leviticus 23. Let's look at Exodus 12.
Can I ask?
Yeah, please, ask questions.
On our weekly Sabbath, it specifically says that you're not allowed to have your workers work. But it does not say that when it comes to the feast Sabbaths. Do I close my business or can my workers work? It's always been a really difficult question for me. So sorry I'm asking.
Yeah, good question. All right, let me just repeat the question for the video. Yeah. So you're allowed to have your workers work on Yom Tov, whereas they're not allowed to work on the Sabbath. So here's the thing. When it comes to the Sabbath, your slaves are not allowed to work.
Yes.
Your employees are allowed to work. Sabbath and Yom Tov, both. Same thing. So the same laws apply to the Yom Tov as to the Sabbath. The only difference between the Sabbath laws when it comes to a Yom Tov is you're allowed to cook food. Only difference. All the other Sabbath laws still apply on the Yom Tov as well.
Perhaps you must just explain what's the difference between a worker and a slave.
None of us have slaves today.
We are.
Hey?
Well, there is still slavery.
Yeah, none of them attend this
You
shul.
can be a slave to all kinds of things.
Yes, but that's different. Yeah.
Business can be open, my people can work while we are on shul.
Technically, yes, but all of your proceeds that you make must come to the shul.
I think the most important thing with the workers is as long as they are not Sabbath observant.
Yes.
Because
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. Remember, even though so that's the legal part of it.
Yeah.
So remember, there's also the idea of keeping the spirit of the Sabbath, and that's a different thing. So it's a bit different there. Keeping the spirit of the Sabbath, you don't want to make any income on a Sabbath or a Yom Tov neither. So that's a different thing. But legally speaking, it's okay. It's not an issue. You're allowed to have people working for you on the Sabbath, maids, cleaners. There you go, etc. Yeah, but if they're Sabbath observant, you cannot tell them they must come work for me on the. Yeah, good question though. Thanks for asking it.
So
All right,
that's a very good fundraiser that you've just got.
very good fundraiser.
Yeah.
There you go.
Funds for the shul.
100%. There we go.
Yeah.
It's the F word for rabbis. Fundraising. Well done. Thanks for the idea. So I'm going to find out where all of you work and check who's open on the Sabbath. All right, so Exodus 12. Now we've got to read Exodus 12 carefully because Exodus 12 is a mixture between the original Pesach and also commandments for the future. Some of the commandments in Exodus 12 only apply once off. We should never do them again. Right? For example, they did the offering in Egypt. Are we allowed to do offerings outside of the place of the temple? No. This was a once-off commandment for them. It doesn't apply today, right? So a few of these things applied only there, but a lot of them are informing us for commandments where God says forever and for future, you are to do these. So we have to be careful as we read it, right? Make sure that we differentiate between them. So let's get into it. Exodus 12, the very first mitzvah God gave to the nation of Israel. Adonai spoke to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, and he said, you are to begin your calendar with this month. It will be the first month of the year for you. So he told Aaron and Moshe, our leaders, to set the calendar so that we can all appear before Hashem on the same date. We don't have all this confusion about mixed calendars. It's Pesach time, ladies and gentlemen. All your friends and cousins are going to be having their own dates for their seders and stuff. And it's balagan. The disunity of it is ridiculous. So anyway, here's the thing. If you want to try and argue your calendar, you can't because it's not up to you anyway. You don't get a vote in setting the calendar. It's our Sanhedrin's job. It's not our job. Okay, so you are to begin the calendar with this month. It will be the first month of the year for you. Speak to the entire assembly of Israel and say, on the 10th day of this month. Okay, now we're going back a few days. We just read that Pesach starts there by the afternoon of the 14th. But on the 10th day of this month, 4 days earlier, each man is to take a lamb or a kid for his family. One per household. Okay, not one per person. Right? The karua is going to run out of lambs if we do that. One per household. Except that if the household is too small for a whole lamb or a kid, then he and his next door neighbor should share one. When last did you have a meal with your neighbor? Dividing it in proportion to the number of people eating it. This sounds like some mathematics we have to do. We have to calculate how many people are going to eat of this one lamb and decide who's going to be at this meal. You have to plan your Seder ahead of time, which is why we're going to send out the message this week saying, please register for the Pesach Seder before so-and-so date or else.
You don't get food.
Yeah, you don't get food. You can have matzah for dessert.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, we do that anyway. But anyway. Okay. Your animal must be without defect. A male in its first year, and you may choose it from either the sheep or the goats. So in that first year, you could choose between sheep and goats. And the defects, you've got to be careful. So for something to be a kosher sacrifice, it mustn't have any defect. So it can't have like a cut in its lip or a cut on its leg. So for that reason, you've got to be very careful about what lamb you're going to do during the temple times. Okay, these guys, they could keep it there for 4 days before Pesach came. They could keep it in the house. What they did was they actually tied it to the bedpost. So for 4 nights before Pesach, you didn't get any sleep. Because the goat was blaring you awake all night. All right, so you give it some, I don't know, Enos or something to put it to sleep. So yeah. Okay, we'll discuss that in a minute as well. You are to keep it until the 14th day of the month. And then the entire assembly of the community of Israel will slaughter it at dusk. Okay, dusk, just at the end of the day basically. So the slaughtering of the Pesach lamb happens on the 14th, that afternoon. The festival actually begins on the 15th. Okay, so that's like this overlapping thing. It's fuzzy maths, Jewish maths. Okay, so don't give the lamb a name in those 4 days because you have to slaughter it. They have to take some of the blood and smear it on the 2 sides of the top of the door. And the top of the door, at the entrance of the house in which they eat it. Do we do this today? No, your neighbors will phone the SPCA. This was a once-off commandment. Last year, 2 years ago, I gave you guys a sermon about how they mixed the blood of this goat with the blood of their circumcision, because they all had to be circumcised to eat that Pesach lamb. And then they mixed it together and smeared it on the... But anyway, that's something else. You go look at that on YouTube. Right. That night, they are to eat the meat roasted in fire. They have to eat it with matzah and maror. What's maror? Bitter herbs. Maror. You're going to hear me roar when I eat it. Right? Don't eat the Pesach lamb raw. Okay? So no gazpacho, whatever that stuff's called. No biltong. Or boiled. You can't boil the lamb. But roasted in the fire with its head and the lower parts of its legs and its inner organs. Let nothing of it remain till morning. No leftovers for breakfast, guys. If any of it does remain, you shall burn it up completely. Here is how you are to eat it. So it's not just about having a nice meal. There's a specific way to eat it as well. Like your mom used to tell you, you sit in your bums and eat. Huh? With your belt fastened. So just a disclaimer, you can still fasten the belt before the meal. After the meal, it becomes questionable. Your shoes on your feet and your staff in your hand, and you are to eat it hurriedly. Not like your mom told you to eat slowly so you don't choke on your food. This once off. This was for them because they had to leave that night, right? This was fast food. This was original fast food. Right? This was a Makari. What? Makari. Pesach. It's Adonai's Pesach. For that night I will pass through the land of Egypt and kill all the firstborn in the land, both men and animals. We always forget about the animals. Even the firstborn animals died in Egypt. And I will execute judgment against all the gods of Egypt. I am Adonai. The blood will serve you as a sign, an oath, marking the house where you are. When I see the blood, by the way, we have a tradition in Judaism that we didn't paint the outside of the house, we painted the inside door. It wasn't about showing people, it was about protecting yourself on the inside. It was the inside lintel that we painted. The house where you are, when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and when I strike the land of Egypt, the death blow will not strike you. This will be a day for you to remember and to celebrate a festival to Adonai from generation to generation. Dor lador. You are to celebrate it by perpetual regulation. So is the festivals done away with when Jesus fulfilled them? Perpetual generation, right? Perpetual regulation throughout your generations, forever and ever. For 7 days you are to eat matzah. On the first day, remove the leaven from your houses. For whoever eats chametz from the first of to the 7th day is to be cut off from Israel, excommunicado. On the first and 7th days you are to have an assembly set aside for God. And these days no work is to be done, except, and this is a very important one, except what each must do to prepare his food. You may do only that. You're allowed to cook on a Yom Tov. Not on a Sabbath. On a Yom Tov you're allowed to cook. We'll discuss that shortly. You are to observe the festival of Matzah. Was that a question or not? No. You are to observe the festival of Matzah. For this very day I brought your divisions out of the land of Egypt. Your divisions, well, the 12 tribes, right? That's why we have this tradition that when we cross the sea, we actually say in the prayers, you split the sea into parts, plural. Talking about the 12. There were 12 channels. Each tribe had its own channel to go through the sea. Right? So he brought our divisions out of the land of Egypt. Therefore you are to observe this day, it's like a toll gate, from generation to generation, by perpetual regulation. From the evening of the 14th day of the first month until the evening of the 21st day, you are to eat matzah. During those 7 days, no leaven is to be found in your houses. Whoever eats food with chametz in it is to be cut off from the community of Israel, kicked out. It doesn't matter whether he is a foreigner or a citizen of the land. Eat nothing with chametz in it. Wherever you live, eat matzah. Alright, so what do we know from the sections we just read here? First of all, we know it's a 7-day festival. It happens in the month of Nisan. Starts on the 14th-ish until the 15th to the 21st. For a whole week, you're not allowed to have any chametz even in your possession. It mustn't even be seen anywhere in your house. If I come and inspect your house and see chametz, I'm going to cut you off. Don't worry, I won't do that. I don't cut people off. That's the job of a mohel. Alright, circumcision. Okay, you shall eat matzah for these 7 days. Now, when it comes to eating matzah, you got to be very careful. Because they do sell matzah in the shops here in South Africa that's not kosher for Pesach. There's a special one, it's called Sonko, is the brand. I think they make it in Poland. That's not kosher for Pesach. But it's matzah. So you're not allowed to eat that on Pesach, alright? So just be careful when you buy your matzah. Matzah, the places we buy matzah, we always used to, obviously Joburg, right? Kosher World, everything, they clean out the whole store and make it kosher for Pesach. Pick and Pay Norwood, that Pick and Pay has got a whole massive aisle. You'll probably find most of the stuff there. Pick and Pay Norwood always has a massive aisle of Pesach stuff. And then they hang the Star of David's in that aisle so you know where you are, so you don't buy pork by accident. But here in Pretoria, so we always used to go to this big Pick and Pay Hyper by Ferry Glen. They're opposite Atterbury Value Mart. Every year they get less and less and less and less kosher stuff. Yeah, it's almost nothing. They're going to have a few matzahs, some matzah meal, and maybe honey. That's all they have nowadays. And juice.
The Checkers in Brooklyn Mall.
Yeah? Really? The Checkers in Brooklyn Mall? Fantastic. Yes. Okay, thanks for telling us. I never knew that. Groenkloof Spa used to have. No, that Groenkloof Spa used to make challah on Fridays. They used to get Max's meat. Like one little fridge of Max's meat. Nothing now. Do they still do the challah? Oh, fantastic.
They've got a nice
Monument Park.
fridge.
Where? Where in Monument Park?
The spa.
Spa Monument Park.
They've got a nice kosher fridge where you can get the nice
Ooh.
salmons and your
Hummus. No, Hamas is in Gaza. Yeah. Fantastic, okay.
Yeah.
Kosher World is having more and more Checkers branches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Putting their stuff on the
Yes.
shelf.
Yeah. So remember, the Kosher World is technically an OK supermarket. All these like no-name shops you have around South Africa, all basically OK. Even 8 Cake down here. 8 Cake is actually OK. So they've got that's their supplier, the main supplier. So they're OK owners, but they have their own name and they trade as their own brand. So Kosher World is the same. So what Kosher World does is that they actually send to different Checkers branches around the country. So in Cape Town, most of those Checkers have little kosher sections as well because of that, because Kosher World sends it to them. So if you can't go to Joburg, great. So we've got the Checkers there in Brooklyn. We've got 8 Cake itself. My dad is very good friends with the owner before he died. And he told him all the years, bring us matzah. So every year they've got matzah. Just matzah though. They've got a nice white one, the Jerusalem matzah. So they usually have. We'll see if his daughter is carrying on the tradition this year. And then of course that Pick and Pay over there. Your local spas and stuff might also have. You never know. They might just have. South Africa's always had matzah in the shops. Growing up, we always used to eat matzah all year round with unkosher Marmite on it. Marmite, by the way, is kosher, but it's not kosher for Pesach. It's chometz in it, so there goes that tradition. Anyway, all right, another thing we learned, of course, is that the first day and the seventh day are Yom Tov. So, let's look at the calendar. I'm sorry it's so small, but you're welcome to look at your calendars. By the way, this is the Kosher World calendar, which they ran out of before we could buy. So Stephanie made us this year for our congregation our own calendars. By the way, this calendar is online. You can just go type in Kosher World calendar and you can read it and see for yourself. So it's there for you available. So if you can't read it now on your picture, go Google it, Kosher World calendar. So let's look at this year because there's a lot happening this year. Okay, so spend some time on the calendar. So the Seder date for this year, Pesach starts on a Saturday night after Shabbat. So the Seder is going to be that Saturday night, meaning that our Yom Tov services this year is going to be on the Sunday morning. So the Seder will have you at Shul. I don't know why on earth we're hosting a Seder. It's going to be a nightmare to run, but you guys want it, so I've been bullied into it. So we're having a Seder this year. For those of you that don't want to, we're going to, the service the next morning, we'll probably, that Saturday service, we'll probably just lay the tables already on the Friday. And we'll have a Shul service around the round tables and stuff.
What
We
about
won't,
outside?
outside, what if it rains?
It's April, doesn't
I
it?
think so.
Doesn't rain in April. There you go. All right. Maybe outside. It's not a bad idea. But it's nice in the Shul because the Torah's here. We have to take out the Torah and do the whole service.
What about here where we do the sukkah?
We can do that as well. Where's the car's going to park? We'll just stand here, man. It's fine. We're going to make a shorter service. Probably not going to give a sermon that day. We'll just do the prayers. All we need is a minyan for that day. So that everything's ready for the Saturday night. Because you're not allowed to lay the tables on the Saturday. You're breaking the Sabbath in order to keep Pesach. Forbidden. Can't do that. Right? Sabbath takes precedence over the other Yom Tovs. Okay, so we'll have the meal that's Saturday night, which means the service, we'll do the quick one in the morning here. Then we'll have our Pesach Day 1 service on the Sunday morning. So you guys must tell your Dumini now, sorry, I'm not going to be there. Otherwise you're going to be in trouble.
Which
Push the Easter eggs on one side. Here we go. I'll come fetch them next Sunday. There you go. All right, so we'll have a service that morning, that Sunday morning as well. So we'll have Saturday morning service, Saturday night Seder, Sunday morning service. And by the way, you don't have to come to our Seder, by the way. If you guys want to do it with your family, in fact, you're supposed to do it with your family and your own kids. But we always host one because there's people that are either single, either old, either don't have the energy to make their own food, etc., etc. If I'm describing you, just nod your head and carry on. All of the above. Sick, lame, and lazy. Some people can't hear. So,
This is when we're like A, B, C, and then D.
all of the above, yeah. All right, so we're going to have the Seder anyway. So you're welcome to come join us. We still have to work out the price. My mom's getting the price. The Jewish old age home is catering for all the Pretoria communities. Everyone's going there. No one's eating at their shuls. So they've got a bunch of different seders happening that night. So there's the main hall, there's another hall, then there's another hall, there's the library. They're all having different seders there. And they're charging $5.50 per head, per person. $5.50. So in previous years, once upon a time, we used to order our Pesach meals from them. And they used to send it, we got the package deal and we paid all that stuff. My mom phoned them last week and they said, sorry, we're fully booked. We don't have space to make food for anyone else. Yeah. So we're going to have to make our own food this year again. We did it last year.
Yeah,
So-
and that's why we're having the kitchen tea
Yes.
beforehand, so we've got the tools to do the food.
Yes, so Stephanie's organised the kitchen tea next week, Sunday, for the ladies group, the Rosh Chodesh
They're
ladies
all,
group.
they've got their little fridge.
Yes, so that we can stock up on some kosher for Pesach dishes. So every year, if we get a little bit more, eventually we'll have enough to make to keep a whole section just Pesach, kosher for Pesach dishes. All right, so so then that Sunday we'll have the service in the morning. By then, we'll have all our kosher for Pesach stuff out already. The shul will be kosher for Pesach, so you don't have to stress about any of that. We do still have bring and share meals. So we're going to rely on you guys. If you want to bring something, please study the laws of Pesach. Come next week to the class so you can understand what is chometz and what to avoid, so that you can bring food on the day. No, for the service, then Sunday morning service. The lunch that we have after the service. Jan says he's bringing a chicken bone. That's kosher for Pesach, yeah, why not? So get creative. Download some Pesach cookbooks and stuff. There's a lot of ways to do this. Okay, so that's there. So that's the first day. Then after that, the whole week is Chol HaMoed, which is normal. Normal intermediate days, you're allowed to go to work. Then that next Saturday, the 19th of April, is Pesach Day 7. It's also a Yom Tov. So this year, that falls on the Sabbath. So we don't have to worry about extra Sabbath prohibitions on another day. So it falls on the Sabbath. So we'll have a service there with a few extra prayers on that Pesach Day 7 as well. Now you'll notice that there's something called Pesach Day 2 and Pesach Day 8 as well. So tradition is that Orthodox Judaism keeps the festival dates outside of Israel for 2 days. Because back in the day, before we had internet and WhatsApp and all these things, you didn't know when is the new moon. Because the new moon has to be declared in Jerusalem by the Sanhedrin in the temple. And then to get the message from Jerusalem to over here in Marabastat, it takes more than 1 day. So they used to just keep it over 2 days just so that you make sure you don't do it. So the problem with that is you think, why can't we just change that today? We've got the technology, right? The problem is when we make rulings, when the Sanhedrin makes a ruling, a nincompoop rabbi today can't overrule the Sanhedrin. In order to overrule the Sanhedrin ruling, that rabbi has to be of the same stature as the rabbi that made that law. So we can't change the laws. So Orthodox Judaism comes and they have these extra days. We don't have services in our congregation on the day. I don't know how many of you are Orthodox. I don't think anyone here is Orthodox completely. Ultra-Orthodox. Right? So we don't have services on the 2nd day and on the 8th day. We'll just have the 1st day and the 7th day. Right? But don't go and not keep the day out of because of me. Right? If one day you get blamed for not keeping the days, it's your problem, not mine. Okay. Right. So let's look at this, right? Okay. So a few things we have to do in preparation for Pesach. We have to burn our chometz. We read there, they're not allowed to have any chometz. So in order to make sure you don't have any chometz, you have to destroy it. It's a mitzvah to destroy your chometz. So in Jerusalem, it's the coolest thing if you've ever been in Jerusalem for Pesach. The whole Jerusalem, that morning before Pesach, there's little fires everywhere. Everywhere. You think they went fishing or something. And every rooftop in Jerusalem is little fires because we're burning our chometz. So you take your last chometz, your last little crumbs that you've gathered together, put it in a bag, start a little fire, and you burn it. Now, this year that's a problem because the day before Pesach is a Shabbat. This week's parasha tells us not allowed to start a fire on the Sabbath. Okay, so we can't do it on the Sabbath. So we move it a day earlier. We move it to the Friday this year. So you'll see there on the 11th of April it says burn chometz before 10:45 in the morning before 10:45. You're not allowed to have any chometz in your possession at the time of the Pesach sacrifice. Is what the verse told us. So the time of the Pesach sacrifice is usually there by 12. We start with the Pesach ones. But we already start with the afternoon sacrifices earlier on the day. So the cutoff time is actually 10:45 on that day. Then by then you must have no chometz in your possession. Okay? So we can still do the burning. We'll do it this year on the Friday morning. Now, here comes the problem. Friday night you have to have a Shabbos meal. And on Shabbos you're supposed to have challah. So you've got two options in how to deal with this. Number one is you just have matzah for that Friday night. Problem, we have another tradition. You're not allowed to eat matzah the day before Pesach because then you don't have an appetite for matzah on the festival. You're spoiling the special, you got to separate between Pesach and the rest of the year. Okay, so we don't eat. It's the same with, what else do we do? The shofar. We don't blow the shofar the day before Rosh Hashanah because we want to make sure that Rosh Hashanah is set apart as Rosh Hashanah. So now you can't do it. So what do we do? So, egg matzah. Have you ever heard of egg matzah? It's a special Easter one. Right next to your hot cross buns. So, egg matzah is a matzah you won't find it in Pretoria. You'll have to go to Joburg to buy this. They mix raw egg into the matzah to make it softer. Matzah is dry. For some people, they struggle to actually swallow the matzah. So they make something called egg matzah, which it's softer and easier on the throat. Egg matzah is forbidden on the first night of the Seder. Reason being, the first night of the Seder, God commands us, you shall guard the matzah. So we call the special matzah we eat on the first night, we call it, what's it called? Shmura matzah. The word shomer means to guard. So the first night, you've got to make sure that the matzah you eat hasn't come into contact with any liquids. As soon as it comes into a liquid, there's a possibility it'll start becoming chometz and fermenting. Right? Mind you, all matzah comes into liquid, but you have to cook it before a certain time. The problem with the egg matzah is, it's not as 100% sure kosher. So you're not allowed to have egg matzah at the Seder on the first night. You're allowed to have egg matzah for the rest of the Seder, the rest of the week, because it is still kosher for Pesach. So then you can have egg matzah on your Friday night Shabbat meal, because it's not even allowed at the Seder. So that's the matzah you're allowed to eat that Friday night. That's the one option. The second option is that you have buns. You make a little bun for every person in your house is going to eat. Small bun, so you know that they're going to finish it. So there's no leftovers. So that you say you're fulfilling this for the mitzvah of the Sabbath, eating bread on the Sabbath, and you eat that, and then the problem with that is you're going to have to end up using like paper plates, because you've already taken out your Pesach dishes. So that's a bit of a schlep. But you can do that. And the crumbs. So what do you do with the crumbs then? The crumbs you have to gather, and you're not allowed to have them in your possession. So you can't throw them in your black bin outside because they're still on your property.
Give it to the dog to eat.
You can give it to the dog to eat. That's interesting.
I've got 2 dogs.
Toilet. What you do is you flush it down the toilet.
Can you eat outside?
Outside your property.
Well,
You've got a long way to get of your property. The property belongs to you, so you can't have any chometz on the property technically. Yeah. So do yourself a favor. Try and get egg matzah if you can. Or if you're not super strict, you can have normal matzah. It's not a mitzvah that you're not allowed to eat matzah the day before. It's just a tradition. So
Won't Spa Brooklyn, won't they be
making what?
egg matzah?
They usually don't. They just sell the normal matzah. If you go to Joburg early enough, you got to find the sweet spot of when to go, just as they get the stock in, and no one knows when that is. I'm usually too late. Then they have all types of matzah. They've got egg matzah. They've got like spice matzah that they've spiced. It's like chips. It's amazing. This rosemary flavored matzah. They've got chocolate matzah that's already made. Different types of matzahs. It's really cool. You got your wheat-free matzahs as well, your gluten-free matzahs, and your whole wheat matzahs, and all the different diseases we think up every year. They make a matzah for you.
Make that on the Friday or you'll make it?
They've already got it. They import it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they import it and they sell it in this white box and it says egg matzah on the cover. Yeah. So if you can't get that, then it's fine. Just use normal matzah. It's not the end of the world.
If anybody's going, let everyone go.
There's a problem because they're going to have to go with a truck because all of us want. And the shops are a nightmare that week before Pesach. Hey, absolute nightmare. But anyway, it's part of the fun.
Can we not put in an order at Kosher World
And go pick it up. You can.
and then send the courier guy to pick it up?
Yeah, they've got
Problem
kosher.
with that.
Yeah, Kosher World's got concierge shopping. You go and you send them an email with your shopping list, and they do it for you. Then you send the EFT, and you can go collect it. You can even send like an Uber guy to go fetch
Does sound a
Yeah.
lot easier.
it. Definitely possible. But it's nice. It's nice to go and see all the stuff and see everyone fighting over the last box of matzah, like Black Friday.
And what's nice about Kosher World, they have the stock from last year. The matzah, because matzah doesn't go bad.
Yeah.
So you can eat it for 10 years.
Yeah.
So the stock from last year that's left over, they've got on special.
Ah, really?
I once
That's
bought
cool.
Quite a
Yeah.
few
There you go.
Last year I bought, I don't know how many boxes for us, at 19 Rand a box.
Okay,
For
good.
matzah.
Nice.
You don't.
And you guys are still fine, right?
Yeah, we're still here.
Just checking.
It's all right. Still
Few
kicking.
leftovers.
doesn't have an expiry.
Cardboard doesn't have expiry date, exactly. All right. So another thing that we do before Pesach in preparation is something called bedikat chometz. Right? Don't feed your chometz to your cat. That's not what we're talking about. Bedikat means basically like a searching for the chometz. So usually the kids love this. This is the original Easter egg hunt, by the way. This is before they made it pagan, right? So the kids, the night before Pesach, they would go in the dark. You put the lights off and you take chometz and you put it in. Is it 5 or is it 10? I can't remember now. It might be 10. 10 little bags. Like a drug dealer. 10 little bags, and you hide it throughout the house. I'm thinking of Calvin's Purim costume. Did you guys see his Purim costume this year? He came with as a drug dealer with little packets. That was brilliant. Anyway, so you take these 10 little bags and you hide it somewhere in the house, put the lights off, and the kids light a candle. Then they take a spoon, a wooden spoon, and a feather. And the kids have to, so you have to have 3 kids for this, those of you that haven't got 3 kids yet. I'm talking to myself. Okay, so and the kids search for it in the dark. And it's a very meaningful thing. It's very beautiful because it teaches us to make sure that we're searching inside ourselves, in the darkest recesses, behind every nook and cranny, to try and find that chometz, that arrogance that's hiding behind in the dark. Dig it out and prepare yourself to meet with Hashem at His festival. So it's a very meaningful thing. Now, we usually do that the night before Pesach. Can't do that because that'll be a Friday night. You can't light a candle and look for stuff in the dark and play with the lights on the Shabbos. So it's also moved to the Thursday night this year. You'll see there on the 10th of April, Bedikat Chometz. So you'll do it that night. By the way, you don't have to use a candle. One of the greatest modern halachists is Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein told us, you know what, if the whole goal is to find the chometz, then a flashlight will do better than a candle. Use a flashlight. So you can use your flashlight. Use your cell phone's flashlight if you need. If you don't want to light, if you're scared of your kids burning the house down, then, do that. Okay, so we do that the night before. All right, the fast of the firstborn. This one's a bit weird. So the fast of the firstborn always falls on the morning before Pesach, the morning of Pesach, so to speak, the 14th of Nisan. And it's only for firstborns. So the rest of us that aren't firstborns, we don't have to fast because we're not so sinful. I'm joking.
I hope Sammy's not on there.
Yeah, you'll watch this eventually. I love to make jokes with him. Firstborn men. But firstborn men from either your father or mother's side. Even if you're only the firstborn, say now you got born and your parents got remarried, etc., and there's an older stepbrother, you still have to fast as a firstborn. So, father or mother side, both. If you're the firstborn, you have to fast. Yeah. Are you sure about that? Firstborn, male? Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's the Bechor. So it's called the Ta'anit Bechorot, which is the fast of the firstborn male. Okay. So, so that traditionally is not even kept. You know why? We've got the tradition in Judaism that on these smaller fast days, if you have a reason to celebrate, you're allowed to break a fast day in order to celebrate something. So what happens in Orthodoxy is we usually finish one of the tractates of the Talmud on that day, so we have a reason to celebrate. So you fast for breakfast, and then you go to shul, and you finish that Seder of the Talmud, and you got a reason to celebrate, and you're allowed to break the fast. And then no one fasts on the day. So you fast for like a few minutes in the morning. So that's usually what's done. Now, the fast itself can't fall on the Shabbat. We're never allowed to fast on the Shabbat except for Yom Kippur. It's the only day you're allowed to fast on Shabbat. Because it's a mitzvah to rejoice, right? And the only way to be happy is to eat. Which, as you can see, I'm a very happy guy. So, my happiness is very important to me. So, it's vrolijk en jollig. Okay, so you're not allowed to fast on that Sabbath. So usually you would think, okay, well, we just move the fast a day earlier to the Friday, right? We're not allowed to fast on a Friday according to Jewish tradition because it impedes your Sabbath preparation as well, and you can't really delight in the Sabbath. So it's moved to Thursday. There's only one fast that we're allowed to do, Ta'anit Tevet, the fast of Tevet, is the only one that's allowed to fall on a Friday. I think it fell on a Friday this year, or last year. It happened recently. That's the only one that's allowed to fall on a Friday, because when it comes to that fast and the destruction of the temple and Nebuchadnezzar, what he did, it literally says on that very day in the language of the fast itself. So it has to be on that very day. So that's the only one that falls on a Friday. The rest of them all move to the Thursday. So the fast of the first one is going to be on the 10th, that Thursday, 10th of April this year. Now, here's the thing. So only the firstborns need to fast. But here's another tradition in Judaism we have. Your rabbi, if you've got like a very prominent rabbi that your family has always followed for ages. Say now you come from the town of Vilna. Then the Vilna Gaon is your rabbi. When he died, his Yarzeit is a fast day for you. Who's your rabbi? Yeshua. When did he pass away? The day before Pesach. The morning before Pesach. The afternoon just before Pesach. So technically for all believers, that day is a fast day for us. So even if you're not a firstborn. So I personally, I'm juggling now whether I should fast or not. I would like to fast because it is my rabbi's Yarzeit. But the same idea that Orthodoxy does with the Siyum, where you have this celebratory meal, you can work that in there because Yeshua didn't die forever. Right? He rose again just after the Yom Tov. So technically, you can break that fast. But if you guys want to take it upon yourself, that's really something that you must think about. Yeshua is your rabbi, so you might want to take the fast of the firstborn upon yourself on that day anyway. Okay, good. So, what else do we have to worry about this year? Havdalah. Hey, how do we do Havdalah on the Saturday night if we're going to sit at our Seder tables? Yes, so on Friday night, you're going to light a 48-hour candle, just to be safe. A 48-hour candle, because you can do Havdalah from a pre-existing flame. So that Saturday night, your Havdalah is usually worked into your Haggadahs. So if you've got the more traditional Orthodox Haggadahs, they'll have the Havdalah ceremony in your service as well. So Havdalah is going to be weird that night. You don't do spices. Spices are there to comfort you because your soul departs, your second soul, your extra soul you get on Shabbat, departs at the end of the Sabbath. It's not departing because we're having another Yom Tov. So you don't do the spices. So that Friday night, we're going to do your Kiddush, your first cup that we do on the Pesach Seder is the Kiddush. We'll do the Kiddush, we'll do the blessing for the day, we'll do one more blessing, and then we'll do the Havdalah. So the Havdalah, you relight a flame from a pre-existing flame. Now, because it's a Saturday night Yom Tov, you don't have to use the special Havdalah candle that intertwined week one. You actually use your normal Yom Tov candles, your 2 candles that you have just like on a Friday night. You can use them as your Havdalah candles for this specific way. So we'll use them. And then we'll do all the blessings. It's in your Siddur. If any of you want to see the Siddur, has anyone got a Siddur here? Okay, don't worry. It's on page 760 if you want to go home and look at it. Your blessings for Yom Tov. Your evening blessings, your Kiddush for Yom Tov is on page 760 in your Siddur. And you'll see there you have your blessings for the evening. Let me actually just look at my Siddur and read it to you guys. Give me a second. Alright, page 760. So,
760.
yeah. Just let me know if it's changed on the new Siddurs or if it's the same. 760. Kiddush for festival evening. So if it falls on a Shabbat, you have to add the Vayachulu Shemayim, but it's not happening for us this year. So we'll jump down to there where it says the first blessing is the blessing on the wine. So you'll bless the first cup of wine, which is in your Haggadah. Right? Then you'll do the blessing of the day itself, the Yom Tov. And you'll say the day, the festival of Matzot. And then it says there on page 762, you'll see in your Siddur, there's this little section in the middle that's like off to the side. It says on Motzei Shabbos, the following Havdalah is added. So Saturday night we call Motzei Shabbos. So then you add Havdalah. Then you'll say the blessing over fire, because you've already done the wine now, right? So you'll say the blessing over fire, and then you'll say the blessing, we usually say who distinguishes between the holy and the common, right? Bein Kodesh, Lechol, the holy and the common. But Pesach is not common. So we change the language. It says there at the end of that paragraph, who distinguishes between the sacred and the sacred. Because they're both sacred. Pesach and Shabbat are both sacred. So we say Bein Kodesh LeKodesh, between the holy and the holy. Okay, so keep that in mind. And then we'll continue with the Haggadah. Then you'll do your Shechiyanu, V'kiyamanu, V'giyanu, Bazmanazeh. Right, good. So we'll do that together here at the shul. If you're having a Seder at home, then keep in mind that's how you do Havdalah at home this year.
Just one question.
Yeah.
There's some medications that one takes that has chometz in them.
Next week we'll study chometz. I don't want to mention it right now because I haven't prepared well enough for that. So there's a list. So I sent out a WhatsApp on Thursday with So there's certain chometz you're not supposed to take. So you need to ask your doctor for something else, unless it's like serious medication. Serious medication. You know, I don't want you to turn into a werewolf during the shul service. It is full moon, eh? So those ones you're allowed to take. Yes, yeah, you're allowed to take those serious ones. Yeah, if your doctor tells you have to take it. If your doctor's prescribed it and said you have to take it every day, you must take it. If there's an alternative, please by all means find one. But if you have to take medicine, take it. Life supersedes everything.
Are we limited to bread with flour? Can we not eat potatoes and stuff?
Yes, you can. Yeah, we'll talk about that next week. Maybe tonight. Today. Will we mention it today? No, we'll study it next week. So there are 5 grains that chometz comes from. Barley, wheat, oats, spelt, and rye. Those are the only 5 where chometz can come from. So milis is fine. Potato is fine. So what happens during Pesach is people try to make bread out of potato. We fail miserably, but we do it every year anyway. So yeah, so you're allowed to do those ones. We've got different traditions though. Ashkenazi tradition is we don't eat something called kitniot. Kitniot is things like milis and legumes and stuff like that. So, but that's just a tradition. So every year I convert to Sephardic for 7 days during Pesach. Okay. All right, so those are the special days. The days in between are called Chol HaMoed. Can everyone say that? Chol HaMoed?
Chol HaMoed.
Well done. You didn't say Chol HaMoed. All right, so Chol HaMoed are normal days. It's work days. You're allowed to go to work. But it's still festive. So you must try and work less. Right? And we still, obviously, throughout those 7 days, you have to eat your matzah as well during those days. That's Chol HaMoed. There's a few different things about Chol HaMoed as well. Those of you that wear tefillin, you don't wear tefillin for those 7 days because the Chol HaMoed is already a sign. You don't need to wear another sign upon yourself. The prayers, we still say the Half Halal throughout the whole Pesach. We say the Half Halal through this Chol HaMoed as well. So keep that in mind. Alright, so let's move on to the next slide. So we've learned now the 10th of Nisan is something we call Shabbat Hagadol, the Great Sabbath. Now, we commemorate this every single year with Shabbat Hagadol. When do we commemorate it? What day of the week? What day of the calendar? Do we celebrate the 10th of Nisan? Not on the 10th of Nisan. Shabbat Hagadol always falls on the Sabbath. That's why it's called Shabbat Hagadol. But it's to remember the miracle that happened on the 10th of Nisan when we took the lamb and took it into our houses. Why is it a miracle? Because the Egyptians worshipped the lamb as one of their deities. You see all of their sphinxes and stuff is animals. They use these animals that they worship, right? It's not just today people on YouTube that are worshipping cats with the cat videos. It's even in the Egyptians back then, right? So when they saw us taking these lambs in, which was their deity, they wanted to stop us, but something held them back and they couldn't do anything. You know those dreams where you can't move? That's what happened to the Egyptians. That's the great miracle of the 10th of Nisan. They were stuck in the mud, so to speak, right? They couldn't do anything. So we commemorate that every year on Shabbat Hagadol, not on the 10th of Nisan. The reason for that is the 10th of Nisan, there's another miracle that happened on the 10th of Nisan, 40 years later, when we crossed the Jordan. The Jordan split for us on the 10th of Nisan when we went into the Promised Land. So if we were to keep this celebration on the 10th of Nisan every year, it would kind of diminish the importance of the splitting of the sea on the 21st of Nisan, the 7th day of Pesach. So we don't want to compare them. So we don't keep it on the 10th of Nisan. We keep it on the Shabbat just before Pesach. That's when we always have Shabbat Hagadol. So that's how we commemorate the 10th of Nisan. The 14th of Nisan, that afternoon, is the Pesach sacrifice. 15th is the first day of Pesach, and the 21st is the 7th day of the festival. Right, remember, the word Pesach in the Bible refers to the sacrificial lamb. That's what the Bible talks about. But we talk about Pesach as the whole festival. There's a few names for the festival. It's called Chag HaMatzot. It's called Chag Aviv, the festival of spring. Aviv means spring, right? That's why we have leap years in Judaism. The reason why we have leap years is because Pesach must fall in the spring. Okay, so we have to add a whole month in Adar certain years in order. Our calendar is lunar, but it's also sort of solar. We need the solar one as well to keep spring in the same time in Aviv every year. So that's why we have the leap years. All right, and it's also called Chag HaPesach at a later stage as well. All right, so let's look at the comparison. Pesach in Egypt, those 3,000 years ago, versus Pesach today in Mzansi. Right, back then on the 10th of Nisan, they had to select the actual lamb and it would stay with you in your house. Today we don't do that. Please don't go to the pet store and buy yourself a lamb. We do the Shabbat Hagadol as a remembrance of that.
Oh, no sheepy.
No sheepy, no. The 14th of Nisan, they would slaughter the lamb and apply the blood to the doorposts. We don't do that, right? On the 14th of Nisan, we start off that night with the searching of the chametz and the berikat chametz that night. The next morning, we do all our meal preparation for the Seder. You feel like you're the one being slaughtered by all that meal preparation. Okay. They had to eat it in haste with their belt tight in their shoes, faster than the staff ready. We didn't have to do that. We can take our time. But it is quite late, right? It goes on until very night, the Pesach Seder. Just prepare yourself for it, right? I'm not going to give you a time the Seder is going to end. I can give you a start time, but the end time is late. Okay, you might go home 11, 12 o'clock. But we're going to use the streamlined Haggadah this year again, because with groups it's just easier. If you want to do this more orthodox one, then you guys can stay awake till 2 a.m. in the morning. Not my problem. Okay. On the 15th of Nisan in Egypt, they had to run for their life that day from the Egyptians. We have to run to Shul. Come to Shul, we're going to daven here together, and we're going to have a nice lunch together and have a nice time all the way through till the 21st of Nisan. Alright, so chometz, we're going to discuss this in depth next week. You're not allowed to have any chometz in your possession. Exodus 12:15 said, whoever eats chometz from the first day to the 7th day is to be cut off from Israel. This is a serious mitzvah. You become persona non grata, just like our ambassador to America. You will also be cut off from Israel if you have chometz in your possession during the 7 days. Doesn't matter if you're a foreigner or a Jew living in the land. Exodus 34 verse 25. You are not to offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread. So you're not allowed to have anything in your possession. And the sacrifice of the feast of Pesach is not to be left until morning. Therefore, you're not allowed to bring the sacrifice if there's chometz in your house that has not been destroyed or sold. This is one of the things we do every year, is we just sell it. So, Chabad, the website Chabad, you can sell all your chometz on there. So what you do is you gather all your chometz, you put it in the cupboard in your house or in the garage or somewhere, and you seal it. Some people even put up signs saying sold, or do not enter, or hazardous material, stuff like that, right? And you actually go and you register on the website, they ask you for your address, and then the rabbi goes and sells it for you before Pesach starts. Then it does not belong to you and it's stored away. So it doesn't count as your chometz. That's one way. And it's important. I mean, for example, if you want a good whiskey is how many years old? 50, 60, 70 years old. These things cost hundreds of thousands of rands. Imagine if you had to throw it away every year because of Pesach. So you have to sell it for that week and then you get it back at the end of Pesach. So you're allowed to hold on to certain things that are chometzi, but they don't belong to you during the time. So it's not in your possession. Some people just sell their whole house and they go away for a week away, a Pesach retreat. There's a very nice Pesach retreat this year at the Vol Dam. Luxury 5-star hotel. In the afternoons you go out on a boat on the Vol Dam and have sundowners. Everything's kosher for Pesach. They've got magicians performing. It costs you an arm and a leg. But who needs an arm and a leg anyway? Okay.
And you exit at Bloemhof Dam.
Yeah, exit at the Bloemhof Dam. It depends on how much alcohol you drink on the boat. All right. You just hope that on the 7th day of Pesach the land doesn't split. Okay. So let's talk about the Pesach lamb itself, the Korban Pesach. We do not eat lamb at your Pesach seders. This is a thing that people try and do. We don't do this. We don't do this. If you've ever heard someone say, but there is some Sephardic people that do it, we all consider them heretics. Even majority of Sephardic Jews consider them heretics as well. You're not supposed to have lamb at the Seder, that first night of the Pesach. Because, reason being, we just read the commandments that says you're not allowed to do this outside of any other place where Hashem makes His name dwell. If you're eating lamb on that night of the Pesach Seder, you're showing the people it looks like you just performed a Pesach sacrifice. You're sending out false images. It's the same with the laws of kashrut. If you're not allowed to mix milk and meat, right? If you're cooking something with almond milk and meat, that's fine, that's kosher. That's not milk, right? But in order not to make it look like you're breaking a commandment on purpose, you have to have the box of almond milk right there next to your pot where you're cooking in. So people can see clearly you're not breaking the mitzvah. Otherwise you're a heretic and we must stone you. The same applies with Pesach. We don't have lamb at the Seder, right? Just that first night. The rest of Pesach, you're allowed to eat lamb, but you're not allowed to have it specifically there at that night because we're living outside of Jerusalem and you're going to make it look as if you're eating the lamb. So that's why you're supposed to have the empty lamb shank on your Seder plate as well, just to commemorate the sacrifice. If you have actual lamb on your dinner plate during that night, you're showing that we actually slaughtered a lamb today. You're confusing the whole image. So please don't do that. We usually have brisket. I think this year we'll do it again. We'll order some kosher brisket from Maxie's. It's kosher for Pesach. By the way, the butchers, they usually have to kosher their entire butchery before Pesach. And all their meat has to be kosher for Pesach. So they'll do it maybe 1 or 2 weeks before Pesach. They'll send out an email saying, we are now kosher for Pesach. All the meat you buy now is kosher for Pesach. So keep that in mind for those of you that want to finish all your meat so long while you have it now. Finish everything in your freezer. Prepare for Pesach. My mom's been doing that. She's been inviting all of her children. For the first time in years, she invites us to eat at her house. And then I realized it's because she's emptying her freezer for Pesach. There you go.
Well, I don't buy I haven't bought roast meat since last month.
Yeah.
I only buy what we need for today.
Yes,
Or
because
for
you
today.
can't afford it.
Yeah, 100%.
Otherwise we have to.
Yeshua says, do not worry about what you will eat tomorrow. Today's got enough tzoros as it is. Alright, so in the days of the temple, you would think, okay, well, if I'm a skaap farmer here in the Karoo, I'll just go with my little lamb. I'll pick out my lamb and I'll say, little skaapie over here, you're going to be the offering for this year. You have to walk all the way up to Jerusalem with this lamb. And the lamb, when it gets there, has to be unblemished. Along the way, it's going to pick up blemishes.
Oh, yeah.
Has anyone worked here with sheep before? No, they're full of nonsense is what they are. Right? Exactly. Because they've never seen a zebra before. They don't know where to cross the road. So the idea of coming with your lamb all the way up in the pilgrimage doesn't make sense. So what they did in the temple was you would have the temple, I want to say, not kind of race, where you keep the sheep, man. Stables, kind of, sheepfold. They would have the temple sheepfold, right? We don't know about this. There by Bethlehem, they would keep them, right, in Migdal Eder. That's where the temple sheep would be. So you would come to the temple and you would purchase your sheep from the temple itself. And they would go fetch the sheep for you on the day so that you know that it's kosher, that there is no blemish in it, and you can do it. You don't have to carry your sheep all the way from Galilee, all the way down till there. Okay, so that's how it happened in the temple. You would actually pick it there from the livestock itself. And you would come and you would offer it on the afternoon of the 14th of Nisan, from around about the 9th hour, which is about midday onwards. After the afternoon offering. Remember, every day in the temple they do 2 offerings. One in the morning and one in the afternoon. The Korban Tamid, the daily offering. There were 2 of them. So when it came to Pesach, they would always do the afternoon offering as early as possible. Because we got thousands of people coming to bring their Pesach lambs on the day for the offering. So they would do that as early as possible, and then they would open the gates for you to come and do that. Listen to this. You have to actually register Just like you guys have to register to come to shul, so I know that there's enough chairs, and then only 2 of you guys send me a WhatsApp. You have to register for your Pesach lamb. Exodus 12 verse 4. And if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his nearest neighbor shall take according to the number of persons, according to what each can eat. You shall make your count for the lamb. You actually have to count and register in the days of the temple. You have to go to the temple and write in the names of your whole family who's going to eat from that lamb. If you do that and you go home and your one estranged child decides to come and visit for Pesach this year and he wasn't on the list, he's not allowed to eat of that lamb. You have to be registered. It's unkosher for him. Okay? So this is pretty interesting. So Josephus tells us, I read it here in the thing, at the 1 year there was 256,500 lambs registered. And that's a lamb per family for about 10 people, right? How many people eat on a lamb? When last did you guys have a lamb spit braai for your 50th birthday? Right? So there's a ton of people that registered that year. That's how many people have to come into the temple and do these offerings. And can you imagine being the priests, having to work out the time frames for how many people we're going to offer, how many bowls we need to catch the blood, etc., how many, how much fat from the things we're going to have to eat among ourselves, etc. They needed to know this in time so they could plan it. Just like our Pesach Seder. So please register in time. Okay. You also can't register for 2 different lambs. Think about it like this way. Say now your dad, for the ladies, if your dad invites you to his house for Pesach and you're married, but your husband decides, no, I'm going to make my own Pesach lamb this year, and he registers you, there's a problem. You can't be registered for both. So the one you registered for is your husband's one, by the way, because you've left your parents' house, etc. Now you're with the same with children and grandparents and stuff. So you can't be registered for 2 different Pesach lambs neither. Keep that in mind. Okay. Otherwise, the food is literally unkosher for you. Okay. So that was in the temple times. It doesn't apply today because we don't eat the Pesach lamb. So none of those laws apply to us today. When you would come to the temple to bring your offering, what the priest did was they split it up into 3 different time slots for you to come, just like when you go fetch your passport. You have to go and register, and they would throw you either into the first, second, or third pot, depending on how early you go and register. And you'd have to come then. So what they do is, it's based upon Exodus 12 verse 6. You are to keep it until the 14th day of the month, and then the entire assembly of the community of Israel will slaughter it at dusk. So they actually use that verse to derive it from there, that we have to have these 3 shifts of laity for when you come and bring your offering. So if you're in the first shift, they give you your time slot and they give you your token saying, yeah, so give it to the bouncer when you enter the temple. And you come in, they close the gates behind you and they blow the shofar to announce this is now the first shift. And then all the sacrifices would begin. While we're doing the sacrifices of the lambs, the certain other priests would be standing on the steps up to the temple and they would be singing the Hallel, Psalm 113 through 118. They'd sing the Hallel over and over again about 2 or 3 times until everyone's finished with their slaughter of their Pesach lamb. They say that when it came to the 3rd shift, the last latecomers, it wasn't a full shift because there was enough people in the first 2 shifts that they wouldn't even finish singing the Hallel 1 time. So don't worry, there will be space for you in the future. Now what happens is you come with your lamb that you've now gotten from them and you've gone and received from the temple, what was that word you guys said? The sheep pen, basically. Okay? Fold, there we go. And you would bring your little sheep and you yourself would be the one to cut its throat. The priest would stand there to catch the blood. Then you would take your lamb and you'd hang it up. The temple wall had these hooks in the wall, rows of hooks, where you could hang your lamb and you could flail it. Certain parts of the lamb are supposed to go to the priesthood. We're not allowed to eat it. Certain fats, the tail, etc., etc., certain organs. The Pesach lamb. No, we have to remove the skin and in the intestines, the poop and stuff. You have to clean it. Yeah. Okay, so the Talmud discusses that you would take those intestines and actually push them against the wall to make sure all that stuff comes out, and then you push the intestines back in to make sure it's one thing. So I'll go double check that for you. That's interesting. Yeah, but we specifically had these hooks there for you to come and do this, to take off the skin, give that to the priests, and to take out not just the intestines, there's other parts of the guts we have to take out as well.
Because the Pesach sacrifice is a total different sacrifice than the rest.
Yeah. But we had to take out remember when King Herod wanted to count he wanted to do a census, and what did he count? He counted the Pesach kidneys. Because the kidneys have to be given to the priests as well. So there's another part that has to be taken out and given to the priests. So there's some things that have to be taken out. I'll double check just to see what exactly it is. But I see what you're coming from, because the commandment said, yeah, the whole thing. But there are parts we have to take out. So no. Yeah, that's why you have to squeeze out the intestines against the wall. Anyway, so
unless could change later.
Yeah.
Check the Hebrew, the whole could be something.
Yeah. I'm just going to read it again in Tractate Pesachim.
I would remember that was at the time when they were living. And that was applicable to them.
Yeah.
That's why they also said this.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, it might be the difference between the original Pesach versus later. We'll have to just double check that. But the thing is, the way that you actually prepare that Pesach lamb as well, you still have to have the leg. You still have to have the leg, the head, all the other stuff. So what you would do is, I think I've got it here. It's later on. We're going to discuss it. You would actually take the legs and you tie it up onto the head of the lamb, so that it looks like it's got a crown. It literally, the Talmud calls it a helmeted kid, which has got, makes us think of Yeshua with the crown of thorns and the sacrifice as well. So yeah, anyway, I'll double check it for you. Alright, so you have these hooks where you could hang it and you could do all the flailing and all the stuff that you needed to do as they would continue singing the halal. There's 4 things you need to do for an offering to be kosher. You have to cut, the priest would catch the blood, then carry it and then throw it on the altar. Right, so then you've got your lamb now, and you want to take it home for the afternoon?
If the people were themselves slaughtering the lamb, supposing they don't know how to slaughter,
then you're a fool. Every family leader must learn how to do it. When the temple stands, you're going to have to learn how to do it. So it's called shchita. We have to do shchita properly. You're going to have to learn how to do it. Hopefully you don't make a mess of it, because then you have to get a new lamb. Luckily we have a spare. But yeah, it's a big responsibility on the family leader. You have to learn how to do that.
Cost?
How much does a lamb cost nowadays, guys? 2,000 for an unkosher lamb. For an unkosher lamb.
And if you're Jew, you'll know how to slaughter it.
Yeah. All right. So so once you've got your lamb, right, they would line up these braais outside the temple, rows of braais all over Jerusalem. You could roast it right there on the spot. You don't want to carry it home and then maybe something comes into it and grows in it. You want to cook it right away. So they have this. It's kind of like when you go to watch the rugby at Loftus on a Saturday, right? Everyone's in the street braaiing. You would braai it right there and then you would carry it home. Problem this year. It's a Shabbat. So on years when it happens like this, the laws of slaughtering are allowed on Shabbat in the temple. So you would still go during your shifts, still slaughter it, the priest would catch the blood, etc., etc., but you weren't allowed to cook it right there and then. You have to wait until the Sabbath finishes before you can cook your lamb. So what would happen is people would actually wait around the temple. They would wait right there until sunset and then do Havdalah and then quickly cook it and take it home. It's very difficult this year.
There's no such thing as cooking a whole lamb quickly.
Oh, mind you, another thing. Exactly, it's a very good point. So Elon Musk has invented a blowtorch you can buy. A flamethrower. So can you imagine what time those kids ate that night, eh? So it's this year, every year Pesach is different. Hashem is trying to communicate something to us in years like this where it falls on a Saturday night. He's saying, hey, life's a bit difficult for you guys for a reason. Word wakker. Okay, so how do you prepare the lamb? Roasted on the spit in one piece, right? Like we are familiar with. Now here's the thing, you can't use a spit, because the metal bar ends up cooking it from the inside. Then you haven't fulfilled the mitzvah. It must be roasted on the fire. You're cooking and roasting. It must be roasted. You can't cook. So you can't use a regular spit. So I just say you must use a branch. Okay? Put a branch through the whole thing, through the whole sheep, and you turn it on there. Get some of this wet wood that at least won't burn up as soon as you put it on there, like your sasatis on the braai. The wood always burns before you can even cook the meat. But here's the problem. Some of those wet branches, they start oozing juice and water. Then you're boiling the Pesach lamb. Can't do that neither. It says you're not allowed to boil it. So our sages have said the pomegranate branch is perfect, because the pomegranate branch, where you cut it, all the liquids drain out. It doesn't drain out in the middle, the part that's touching to the actual land. So in Jerusalem, they would all gather up their pomegranate branches and walk with your branch, and then you would come and you'd stick it through the animal and you would carry it home, kind of like those guys who were carrying the grapes back from the promised land. So you would use a pomegranate branch. So I know that they say rosemary always goes well with lamb. Apparently pomegranate branch as well. So this is how they would do it in the temple times. So that the juice leaks out the end where you cut it instead of in the meat itself.
Something to remember.
Yeah.
Next time you make
Yeah, we've got lots of pomegranates outside the shul, just in case you're planning on doing a Pesach. Alright, so here's the part I told you. They would fold up the legs and put it behind the head to make it what's called a helmeted kid. Very interesting. No leftovers of that in the morning. So you have to eat that entire lamb that night. And you don't eat it as main meal, you eat it as dessert. The afikomen, the very last step of the Pesach Seder, in the temple times, afikomen, you ate the Pesach lamb, not matzah. Today we eat matzah to replace the lamb. Back then, your Pesach lamb was your dessert. So you had to work out when you're registering how many people are going to eat dessert that night. They have to eat this lamb as dessert. So you can easily get 20, 30 people registered per lamb as well, if it's going to be the dessert. Okay, so it's the very last thing you eat. After you eat that Pesach lamb, you're not allowed to eat anything else for the rest of that night. No midnight snacks, guys. Right, so it's a Yom Tov that day, right? So it says on the first day and the seventh day you ought to have an assembly set aside for God, and these days no work is to be done except what each must do to prepare his food. You may do only that. Thank goodness this verse is in the Bible, so that we're allowed to cook on a Yom Tov. Because can you imagine if you have a Yom Tov for 2 days, like Rosh Hashanah for example, it starts on a Thursday, and then a Friday, and then a Shabbos. You can't cook for Shabbos. So Hashem knew this was coming, right? He loves the kitchen. So he told us you're allowed to cook on a Yom Tov. You're not allowed to cook on a Shabbat, but you're allowed to cook on a Yom Tov. Okay, so this coming year, of course, the first day is going to be on a Sunday. If it fell on a Saturday, you're not allowed to cook on the Saturday, even though it's a Yom Tov. You're not allowed to cook on Saturday, period. So this year it falls on a Sunday. So you're allowed to cook on the Sunday. Even Saturday night, you're allowed to cook from a pre-existing flame. Like we don't start a new fire, a pre-existing flame. Then you can light your gas burner, and then you can cook for the day. So Sunday, after shul, that night, if you guys want to make yourself something nice, you can cook from a pre-existing flame. It's not a problem. Okay. The seventh day, this year falls on a Saturday. So we can't cook on that Saturday, it's a Shabbat. But you're going to cook on a Friday anyway, preparing for your Sabbath. So it still has to be kosher for Shabbos that week. You're not allowed to cook on that day. Your Sabbath meal, for that Friday night, since it's the last day of Pesach, you're still going to have matzah, and it has to be kosher for Pesach as well. So you're going to have very flat challah that week. One thing to consider is your covering for your challah. That covering is chametz. It's been touching bread for 51 Sabbaths the whole year. Right? Don't use that same cover. You need to use a new cover specifically just for Pesach. So every year try and buy a few more things for Pesach. It's impossible to buy everything at once. Try and get a cover this year, some plates this year, some cups that year, a breakfast bowl, some more spoons and stuff is easy. Spoons you can just kasher. You can boil them in water. So I'll be spending the week before Pesach here kashering every single spoon and knife and fork we have here in the shul for that. So that you can do. But plates, the problem is plates, they absorb chametz. So porcelain absorbs chametz. You can't use the same porcelain technically speaking, on a Pesach. So we use plastic. We bought one year a bunch of plastic stuff. And we for the Seder, it's hard to eat soup, hot boiling matzah ball soup out of a plastic bowl. So we put it in a normal porcelain bowl with the plastic on top. So please don't come here on the Seder and take it and say, oh, I'm going to pour it in here. Don't do that, please. Right, we're going to eat it out of the plastic, and we're going to have plastic plates. Don't think that we are very common or something because we have plastic here. There's a reason for it, okay? Foil on everything.
It's fine, said one of these days we will have our own Pesach crockery.
There we go. All right, because you must separate between the holy and the common. Okay. Yeah. So, matzah. Here's a question. How often do we have to eat the cardboard? Exodus 13 verse 6 says, for 7 days you are to eat matzah. How many of you love matzah?
Me.
Go get your head checked. It's called by the Torah the bread of our affliction.
It's a good diet.
It's a good diet, but it's not supposed to be nice.
It's lekker. I agree.
Say again, except? Oh, that pudding is nice. The chocolate matzah is fantastic, yeah. Put chocolate on anything, it's nice. I've tried pouring chocolate on my kids, I still struggle with them. Alright, so for 7 days you have to eat matzah, and the 7th day is a festival for Hashem. Deuteronomy 6, it says something else. Wait a minute, what's going on here? We have a discrepancy in the Torah. Is it for 7 days or for 6 days? Deuteronomy says for 6 days you are to eat matzah. And the 7th day there's a festival for assembly for Adonai your God. You shall not do any work. What's going on here, guys? We throw the Torah out. We found a discrepancy. People do this with the New Testament. We found something wrong. We throw out the whole New Testament. Okay, so maybe we were misunderstanding it. And the Talmud, they discuss this. and they say it's not a commandment that you must eat matzah for 7 days. That's not the commandment here. It's not a mitzvah to eat it for all 7 days. In fact, the only time you have to eat matzah is at the Pesach Seder, because the commandment says, at the Seder you shall eat it with the lamb, with the maror. There's the commandment for eating matzah. Only on the first night. So those of you that have issues with eating matzah, there's people that have issues with this. You don't have to eat matzah all 7 days. Only on the Pesach Seder. You're commanded to eat it. We're talking over here about the 7 days and the 6 days. It's saying more of, it's teaching us a principle, the rabbis tell us, that if you have to eat bread during those 7 days, it must be matzah. It's not a commandment to eat matzah all 7 days. It's teaching us the broader principle. And the reason why we've got the difference between the 7 days and the 6 days here has to do with the Omer. So when we come to Omer, so certain years, if the Omer falls, I think this year might be one of those weird ones, where how do you come to Omer? Is there a Sabbath in between the first day and the 7th day of the Omer? All that stuff. That's where this plays. This is why we have the 7th day and the 6th day here. It's in the lesson we did last year when we spoke about the Omer machloikas amongst the rabbis and the what were they? What were the guys that had that weird idea? Not Sadducees though? No man, those other guys that had the weird Omer thing. The Bethusians and the Sadducees and the Bethusians and the Karaites as well. Yeah, we spoke about that last year, so it's on YouTube, so go check it out there. That's the reason why we have the 7 and the 6 over there. Alright, so you have to have matzah on the first night. Right, next slide, last one. Hey, we're at the end. Okay, good. Remember, with all the preparation for Pesach, it's a bit scary. Sometimes you feel like, I'm just going to skip this Pesach thing and make it easier, etc. There's a commandment that you must rejoice at your festival. It's a mitzvah to rejoice and be happy on Pesach. You, your sons, your daughters, your male and female slaves, the Levites and the foreigners, orphans and widows living among you. So if all this Pesach prep makes you crazy, makes you want to jump off a bridge, you've missed the plot. Right? It's not supposed to go that far for you. Don't stress that much. You have to rejoice in your festival. So make sure you don't take that matzah and think, I think I'm going to slit my wrist with this matzah. No, don't do that. Right? Don't stress about all the minutiae that we're going to study, especially next week with the chometz and the medicine and that stuff. Do as much as you can, and a little bit more. Because it's the day for the Hashem watches us. A little bit more than what you think you can do. Push yourself a little bit, but not beyond the point of no return, where it becomes a schlep and it becomes a stumbling block for you, that your children and your family members are not going to want to ever do this when they grow up. Because look how crazy my parents went with Pesach. They had separate toilets for matzah and etc. Right, so next week we'll get into that. The Pesach Seder, you have to wear fine clothes because it's a commandment to rejoice. You have to eat a festive meal. We have to have fun, tell some jokes in the night. You have to sing the Hallel at the Seder. It's the only time we do the Hallel at night as well, by the way, is on the Pesach Seder. And you have to invite guests. You have to rejoice with the people among you, all your friends, etc., etc. So that's it. That's the introduction, the little, just the introduction to Pesach, what happens, how it goes. Next week we'll do the intense part about what is chometz and all that stuff, and then we'll talk about the Haggadah as well. Don't be in denial.
Warning.
Warning, yeah.
Warning.
Yes.